Welcome to the Sober by Design podcast, where we explore the many pathways to recovery and a better life through conversations with a wide array of guests. Whether you're sober curious, in recovery, or simply looking to improve your mental health and well-being, this podcast will have something for you. Each week, we sit down with inspiring guests from all walks of life who share their personal stories of struggle and triumph, offering valuable insights and practical advice on how to design a life worth living. From addiction and mental health to spirituality and creativity, we cover a wide range of topics that are relevant to anyone seeking to live a more fulfilling and authentic life. So join us on this journey of discovery, growth, and transformation, and start designing a new life. Okay, everybody, welcome to the Sober by Design podcast. My name is Corey Hennings. I'm the host of this podcast, and we've been on break for a little while. I had a busy August, September, October as normal in my life. And, taking a break from recording was something that helped me definitely get through the months. Not something I wanted to do, but something that was more just an effect of the busy schedule. We have 2 children in this house, and I am married. I have a job, and the podcast, while important, is not going to ever take precedent over certain things. That was something that I made sure I would do as I went into recovery, even back in 2012, making sure that as I recovered, my family, my life, and things outside of recovery were always going to be central to who I was, and I was recovering to be part of the life around me. It is something that I think is important, and I preach to anybody who's in the recovery space to understand that balance of what you do for your recovery and then the life that you are leading because you are recovered, right? We don't recover to just stay in meetings, 12-step meetings, or SMART meetings, or doing recovery podcasts. We recover so that we can enjoy our lives as a whole person, and really dive into the things that we love, be that our family, our work, activities, our children's sports, and any of those community service things that we engage in. So through August, we had a busy August. Our younger son played in a baseball tournament in Cooperstown, which was a very exciting thing for all of us. I don't think we were expecting it to be as interesting and fun as it was. And in all honesty, it was a very cool experience for everybody. And then, we went on vacation, and then school starts, and we went right into baseball season for fall ball and soccer as well. And just kind of it keeps rolling, and, a lot of time dedicated to those things, and really didn't leave a lot of time to record, even by myself, which is what today's episode is. It's just me kind of coming back and explaining where I've been and, where this podcast is heading over the next couple months. What I will offer is that I kind of rebranded the artwork, so you'll see new artwork on the cover art of wherever you're listening. Just trying to simplify things and really focus on the guests that I bring on, and maybe even more so than in the past, bringing on people from different spaces. So not always just recovery spaces, but having more engaging conversations around other items. Still recovery focused, still health focused, still focused on helping somebody become the best version of themselves. But that doesn't always have to come just from discussions around how somebody found their sobriety or their story of the past, right? I think there's people who maybe still, can drink, who can still bring something to us in our world. So I'm going to be looking for different types of guests moving forward. And as always, people can choose to listen or not. And today, same thing. Today's episode is a little bit about where I've been, and then diving a little bit into this past week. This is still the week of our election here in the United States, and a lot of big feelings this week for everybody on either side of the political spectrum. And I've had a hard time wrapping my head around what to say. I've tried to type some things out, and it just hasn't worked. And I've had some conversations in our house about it, and it's just something that I wanted to talk about a little bit. So if you don't want to hear my thoughts on the election, feel free to hit next on your streaming device and go from there. But, that is what I'm going to be talking about for a little while, because I do think it relates back to our health, our recovery, our sobriety, and how we are going to move forward over the next 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, whatever this is going to look like. We like to kind of separate out politics and sobriety and all these things, but they're all intertwined a little bit. And I know this week I haven't been feeling my best. That does not mean that I've felt the need to drink, because that hasn't been something that's happened. But my physical health is definitely down this week, and maybe that's just because I caught a cold or something. But I also think that I'm vibing off the people around me, and I'm probably just a little bit down. Again, if you don't want to hear political stuff, hit next, because this is where I'm going to dive into it. All right. So, first, I'm just going to start off with the fact that, I've voted in every election since I've been able to. For the most part, I would consider myself to be on the liberal side of things. Never once have I voted for a Republican or considered myself to be a Republican or right-leaning in any way. Libertarian, probably more in that world than anything. And that has been true of my voting stances. In every election up to this point, I have voted for third party, or I think I voted once for a Democrat, and that was Obama in his second term. And that's kind of been my stance. If you know me, probably not a shock. If you've ever, confused me for being a conservative or right-leaning, maybe I just gave you the wrong opinion that day. And to be honest, I don't think it matters at the end of the day what side you're on. I try to be very open about my thoughts, and I try to be very open in when I'm talking to somebody. I can understand the point of view of somebody on the other side of the table. I have a good friend, probably my best friend since childhood, who is way on the conservative side of things, and we coexist. We don't see eye to eye on most any political, topic, but that doesn't mean that we don't care about each other immensely. We don't let it divide us. We can speak our minds on things and then move on and get back to our normal discussions around things that truly matter to each other. And I try to hold that idea with just about everybody. I am not going to see eye to eye with everybody on political items, and I know that. So that's just kind of to framework who I am as a person when it comes to politics. I am left-leaning, again, maybe a little bit more to the libertarian side of things. I don't love control over much of anything that we do in this country. I would be very much in favor of less regulation for just about everything, if that was possible. But we are in the two-party system. we have Democrats and Republicans, and that's who we vote for every 4 years without much choice, right? We've all seen it. We've seen some third-party candidates try. It fails. I voted for third party again every time but one. And I'll probably continue to do that for the foreseeable future, unless there is a candidate that comes out of the two major parties that I believe in. And I will say that in 2016 and in 2020, I was an avid Bernie Sanders supporter. And, I saw that entire campaign have such energy both times with, working class people, young people. And, there was a real sort of energy around his campaign, and an energy that I think matched to some extent the energy that we see around the Trump campaign and the Trump machine on the right. There was this sort of grassroots movement of people who are saying, like, I believe what Bernie's selling, right? He's selling, support of the working class and support of healthcare for all. And, while not everything maybe resonated totally across the Democratic sphere, I think on most things, what he was touching on is kind of the same things that the Trump campaign touches on, but in the flipped version. And what I mean by that is that, Trump is sort of tapping into a fear around these ideas of your job, and a fear of, healthcare, and a fear of, losing your rights. And I think the Sanders campaign in 2016 and 2020 was the complete opposite of that. It was touching on all those same points, but doing it through a lens of hope and change, and this idea of it's a positive. And for reasons that are beyond me, I think we as humans tend to resonate more with the fear side of things. It's an easier emotion to tap into, and that is why on the right, on the Republican side, Trump was able to take that and march it forward a lot easier and get that like true support across his whole party. Where on the Sanders side, on the Democratic side, I think that those messages, there was probably twofold reason, or maybe more, that didn't work. But one, it's harder to tap into that hope and the positive energy that surrounds those same ideas. And then two, I think, and maybe this is more nefarious, but I think that there were people in power who saw Bernie and that movement of, supporting the working class as something that was going to chip away at the corporate earnings that then fund, campaigns for the Democrats. Either way, never was the nominee, right? I think in 2016 he kind of hung on and waited, and came back in 2020 and really put that energy back forward and was hoping to be the nominee. And both times his party fought against him, right? I'm not going to go into all the details here. They are long, exhaustive details around, different people within the DNC apparatus who, actively did things to undermine the Sanders campaign. And in each time that then elevated somebody in the party who was more of that mainstream Democrat, right? So keeping the status quo. So in 2016, we had Hillary, who we know what happened, lost to Trump. And then in 2020, we had Biden, who was successful, right? And we could say he was successful because there was such hatred against Trump. We could say that, maybe he was the candidate that inspired people. I'm not exactly sure. I think it was a mix of a lot of things, right? We had the pandemic. There was a true hatred of Trump and Trumpism. There was a big movement online, and there was a lot of support for Bernie. I mean, for Biden. But both of those candidates again were elevated by the Democratic Party, despite this current that existed, I think, throughout the voters that wanted something a little bit different. That wanted somebody who was maybe a little bit more on the populist side, but with the Democratic spin, right? So Trump populist on the Republican side, and the Democrats don't really have that. The Democrats just keep having these like standard Democrats. And then Trump, is on the other side talking about, things that he might not have policy on, but resonate with people, their wages, their low wages and jobs and, safety and these like concepts that are, strong concepts, but he goes at them through the lens of fear, which is then tapping into two things at the same time, right? A concept that people care about. And then again, the fear reaction is so strong in people that they are going to gravitate. And, if this person is promising that they're going to fix something that they're afraid of and that they care deeply about, that's an appealing candidate to vote for, despite not having any policies or any real ability to change things, or at least articulate how he's going to change them. He's tapping into that, and he is just sort of saying big things that are riling up this base, right? And we saw the outcome this week. He was able to win a second term. I believe he's the second president ever to serve, be voted out, and come back. I think it's him and Grover Cleveland. So it's not the first time in history, but it's not a very normal circumstance for something like this to happen. How we got here, again, I think is a lot of, there's a lot of history here, and this could have gone differently. And I think over the next couple months, as we go through, the holiday season, coming into the inauguration, and then, right after, I think there's going to be a lot of second guessing of what happened, right? If it's through my lens, I'm second guessing all the way back to 2016. And could something have happened different then that would have put us on a different course? And I sit here and I think yes, right? I think had the DNC not meddled in that election, I think we would have had a different candidate going up against Trump, and you would have had two people who were sort of arguing the two sides of the same coin, right? You would have had Bernie and Trump, and I think that would have been a much different election. I don't think that people really, when you put it out into the majority, I don't think Hillary was the one to move the needle against him. I think Bernie had a more exciting campaign. I think we could have stopped the Trump movement in 2016. We didn't. We stopped it in 2020 with Biden. And then I think people just got a little bit too complacent, right? We've had 4 years without Trump, but he's been campaigning the whole time. And he's been campaigning on the same things. We've seen what Biden's been doing in the office. We've seen Harris in office. And, like it or not, things have not been going great for a lot of people in our country. People are feeling the impacts of costs rising. People are feeling less safe overall, I think the mood is that the country's worse off than it was 4, 5, 6 years ago, um, which is shocking because, we had a global pandemic and things were not looking great at that time. But, as people look backwards in time, sometimes, the rose colored glasses go on and you start to, really sort of elevate times that you had. I mean, I do it personally. I think we all do it, right? I can look back in time and go, oh, it was better in 2002 or 2003 or whenever, right? And if I'm being honest with myself, it was hard back then for me. And I think if we were honest as a country, it was hard back, 2018 or 19. But either way, I think the sentiment throughout the country is that we're on a path that's not as good as it was just back, again, 4, 5, 6 years ago. So in this election, that was sort of the underpinning of it all, right? We are not in a good spot, and the people who got us there are in office, right? Biden, Harris. And early on in the cycle, it was clear that the Democrats and, the media, the liberal media, because people say mainstream media. I kind of hate that term, but the liberal media, right? And we all know that a lot of news sources are biased one way or the other. And if you don't think that, I really ask you to, listen to Fox News for a day and then listen to MSNBC or CNN, right? Or listen to Newsmax or, ONA or whatever they are, right? Listen to each of them. You're going to hear the same story through two different lenses, and it's going to hit you in two different ways. Depending on what side of the spectrum you're on, you're going to say this is garbage, or you're going to say, yes, I believe this. Because it's through a lens. It's editorialized news. It's not just news for you to digest, and we're all getting different news. So anyway, stepping back, the Democrats and the liberal media all were sort of behind Biden and saying he's the choice to bring us the victory again. There was early on in this campaign cycle, there were people who wanted to run a primary. You had multiple candidates who were saying, I want to primary Biden because we don't think he can beat Trump, be that Marianne Williamson, Dean Phillips, and RFK. I think were three names early on who wanted to primary Biden. And it didn't happen. I've heard people close to me, I've heard people online say, oh, we never primary a sitting president. I think now as the Democrats are going to go back and sort of diagnose why I'm wrong, I think this is going to be one thing that is going to be questioned moving forward. Because if you had a primary process, you might not have ended up with the candidate that was running against Trump. You might have had the chance to get messaging out that spoke to an electorate that was different than what they had heard, right? Like they were hearing the Biden-Harris message from start to finish. And it wasn't anything new. It was the same messaging. And there were things that voting Democrats wanted to hear that would have been different. And I think those would have come out through a real primary process. And if you look back and you do some research, you'll see that was squashed. And anyway, that's what happened. So we lived with what we had. As time went on, it was clear that Biden was going to be the candidate, and it was going to be Biden-Trump. And it was close. The polls were close through the whole way, and then at some point, the debates started. Each candidate was, I believe during the first debate, we still hadn't had the conventions, so a little bit unusual. These were two candidates that weren't actually nominated yet by their party, but Trump had kind of won the primary season, and Biden was, you know, the sitting president and presumed nominee, and we had that first debate between the two of them, and it was clear at that debate that something was not right with President Biden. He really struggled, and this was a shock to some, and and then others kind of said, "See, we told you," and I probably was more in the "See, we told you" camp. But the media, or again, the liberal media, all went on the air following, and at first tried to cover and say that things were fine and he is the sharpest person in the room, and all of the things that had been going on for months. And then slowly that message changed, and people started to come out and say we needed a new candidate. I got to tell you, at that point, I started to get excited. I really thought that was the moment that the Democrats were going to seize on, and we were going to take this election and go from a 50-50 chance to something that was just squashing out the Trump campaign. It was the moment in time. Yes, there wasn't a lot of time, 100-ish days, but there was time, and I think it could have gone really well for the Democrats if they had gone with a certain strategy. But within about 3-4 days of Biden, some of that talk of him leaving, I can't remember the exact timing. Maybe it was a week. I know I was on a boat up in Maine when the news broke that he was dropping out of the race. He endorsed Harris, and sort of the machine went behind that, and everybody kind of fell in line. And Kamala Harris was the presumptive nominee at that moment during that weekend. It was very clear that this was the direction it was going to go. I think there was the Obamas did not endorse right away. I believe they left the door open for a open primary at the convention, and then that door was shut very quick. And I believe the Obamas endorsed Harris the next week. So at that point, it was clear that we had a Harris Trump campaign, and it was going to be what it was. I myself was very skeptical of the entire just sort of installation. I know there was, again, people in my sphere saying that this is the way it had to go, that there couldn't be an open convention, that we had voted for Biden in the primary, therefore, if anything happened, Harris was going to be the VP. I don't believe that's the case. I believe there was legal ground and plenty of opportunity to do it in a different way. But this was truly the Democratic Party, the DNC, in full motion to just sort of push down on their electorate what they thought was the best path forward. Again, taking the choice out of the hands of the people and saying, we know better for you than you do. And to me, that's been sort of the problem that I've had since 2016, of this idea of like, we know better. You don't know enough. You're not smart enough to make these choices. This elitism that has been pervading the party, and the messaging is, we're smarter than you. We went to an Ivy League school. We're consultants. We are the DNC. You don't know what you want. We know what you want, and we're going to give it to you. And they did that. And at the start, it looked like it was going to work. And then as those 100 days ticked away, you could see sort of the veneer coming off of the entire thing. There were leads in the polls, 8 points, 10 points, early on for Harris. And as time went on, those leads went away, and that margin tightened up again, right? So we're now back within that plus or minus 5% error, and it got very dicey in my eyes as I'm watching this happen. This is now again a coin flip, and this went from something that people felt we got this now that we've installed this new candidate and we got it in the bag to, oh no, this is a 50-50 shot. And, there were other missteps in there that I think happened. I think, we can go back and dissect some of the media tour that Harris went on. We can go back and I think really question some of the language that was used by the Democratic side of things as they describe Trump voters. And, just it kind of set the table in a way as we headed into November that just wasn't looking positive for the Harris ticket through my eyes. And none of this is to excuse the Trump side and the language they use, and the rhetoric and, their policies. Again, adamantly, I am against the majority of what that side is pushing. Doesn't mean I'm against all of it. I'm open to some of the policies of the right. I'd probably be more fiscally aligned on the right than others from the left. But right now I'm speaking just specifically about sort of these miscues that happened on the Harris side. And so as they rolled into the last week, there was some opportunity, I think, to gain some ground, to really open up the voters' eyes. And those opportunities were missed, not taken. I think looking back, this sort of very, very closely held media tour that the Democrats ran her on will be questioned, just as like the lack of primary, the lack of the early primary, right? Not primary Biden. I think this very sort of scripted media campaign, that we heard the same points over and over and over, which used to work in the past before social media and the internet, right? Because you'd have to say the same things over and over and over. It's like drilling your message in on like a roaming road show that happened pre internet. That worked. But now, you say the same thing 20 times, 30 times, people splice it together and it just sounds like you either don't have any other points, or two, it's all you can remember, right? The beauty of today is, you say it once and it's going to get played over and over. So change your messaging and go out there and be yourself and show the world who you really are through your lens, I think is an important thing. And that did not happen on the Democratic side, for better or worse. One, I don't know if it was just a strategy. Two, I'm not sure that Harris had the ability to just sit and speak for an hour. It is hard to sit and talk for an hour. I can tell you, just because I try to do it, it's a difficult thing. Or three, maybe they just had this idea that, old media, sitting down with, CNN for a town hall and sitting down with CBS would work. And And then the other thing that I think really started to hurt the campaign was just this not distancing themselves from Biden. They were very like dead set on sort of staying lockstep, and not giving any air gap between who she was and who he was. Um, and there were moments where she was asked if she would change anything, and she said no. Um, Kind of not really showing any kind of difference in policy around certain things that we just know were big needle movers for the left, right? The war in Gaza, for instance, is one that comes to mind. If she had taken a different stance on that, that changes the young vote. It changes the minds of people who are just not into forever wars. That is a huge one. She didn't really know how to distance herself from some of the things along the border and immigration. Kind of struggled with the economic side of things. Again, not that I believe in Trump's tariffs, but she just couldn't quite differentiate, inflation and price gouging, which is, as you sit there and listen, they're two separate things. And people did try to lead her to the answers, and she just kind of kept dancing back to her speaking points. And I think as time went on over those 100 days, these answers just started to hurt her more than help her. Maybe 100 days was too long. Maybe if the Democrats kind of held on until 50 days, this would have been a different result, right? We still would have been riding high on the excitement of it all. But I think at a certain point, there was an exposure of things that kind of hurt. And as that exposure started to happen, you could see the Democrats and the Democratic media going back to this idea of attacking people and, calling certain voter populations uneducated, looking down at certain people, and instead of being curious as to why certain populations were swinging towards Trump, speaking down to them, right? And I just think all of it sort of started to back up at the end of this cycle, and all these things that people thought were helping hurt. And here we are now, 5 days out from the election, and we have people on one side who are extremely happy about the result, right? 50% of the country or thereabouts. And then there's 50% of the country who's, I think, devastated, and, their head is spinning. And out of that 50% that's on the wrong side of this, right? The people who did not want Trump. Okay, so anyway, let me go back for a second. That was my thoughts on how we got there, right? I think there were just miscue upon miscue that got to a point where we had lower Democratic turnout than we would like. I think some of those people swung to third party. I think you had some flip, and that became the delta between Harris and Trump, and Trump won, right? We know the punchline. So here we are today, and this is kind of what I want to talk about. So we're here today, and there are people who are hurting. I have friends who are grieving. I have family who's grieving. My wife is grieving about this loss, right? And this feeling of what's next. I am not happy with the results. I am in a camp of my feeling is that I have a hope that our system works to protect sort of the country and the things that we've built to date. And I hear my friends who are truly worried about women's health and rights for um, the gay community and rights for trans people and safety of people of color and safety of immigrants. And I hear those concerns and I understand them. Um, and I also feel, again, I feel like there are measures beyond one person that are going to help, you know, keep us this great country that I know we are. And that's my feeling. And maybe I'm going to be called naive. Some people might say that I am just not supportive of those people anymore, right? Like somehow because I feel like things aren't going to fall off the cliff, I am now a Republican, um, which hurts me, in all honesty. Um, because I am not in the anxious world or this place of like deep fear, I'm somehow not caring anymore. And that couldn't be further than the truth. I care deeply. Um, I wouldn't be recording this episode if I didn't care deeply about this. I worry about women and gay and my gay friends and people who I know who have children who are, struggling with gender identity. And I worry about immigrants in this country and people who want to come to this country for a better life. I truly care about all of these things. Um, and I just think that, again, at the highest level, um, we have sort of safety nets built in. And my hope is that those safety nets work to stop anything from taking away the rights that we've earned to date for these people. I also feel that, we are going to see people, just like we did during the first presidency of Trump, sort of take this step towards they're emboldened to sort of let their hate out. And that is not good. We've seen a little bit of it in the past couple days already. I don't know that all of the things that I've seen on social media have happened in the past couple days. I think some predate the election. They are text messages that are just blatantly racist that have been going out en masse to people. I think some of them happened in Texas, actually during the election cycle. There have been posts on social media by young men who are saying to women, your body, my choice, which I think is just horrendous and disgusting. And if it was either one of my boys that did that, they would have a really hard time just getting out of our home because you as a father and as a parent need to teach your boys and young men to respect women and know how to talk to them, right? Like that is not okay on any level. And just because somebody feels like the country isn't going to spiral into chaos does not mean that they support these actions. I think both of those things can coexist, right? You can feel like things are going to be okay and not fall off the cliff, and despise the actions of racism and misogyny and oppression. And that to me is a little bit about where we need to go as a country. I think we need to start to truly recognize that people are going to hold little different views than you, right? And be respectful of those differences. We all, at the end of the day, are people, and we all want our families to be safe, secure, have the access to food and clothing, have the access to healthcare that they need, education. There's these fundamental things that people want and need. And despite what side of the political spectrum you're on, you all kind of want the same thing. It gets a little twisted when we bring in rhetoric, right? It's the same thing that happens around religion and like the dogma of it all. Like it can get a little sticky. And right now, I think as people backslide from religion and dive into politics, they kind of put these political or religious overtones on their politics. You know, being a Democrat has become a religious kind of stance, and being a Republican has too for a lot of people. And maybe those are the tail ends, right? The 10% on either side. But those are the loudest voices. And when you start to demonize either side, that's when you have a problem. When I have people on the right disrespecting gay people and shouting out things like, your body, my choice, calling, a woman who is making a choice to have an abortion a murderer, you know, using racial slurs or using slurs against gay people, and doing so and saying it's because they are, righteous and so, behind morals. It's hard to understand that. And on the other end of the spectrum, when I have people on the left who are, continue to call, voters from Middle America uneducated. I heard it on CNN. Uh, you know, or if you're, saying young men who want to take care of their bodies and go to the gym, and just because they do that, they are somehow right leaning, or if they listen to certain podcasts, they have no perspective on life and they just hate women. Um, you know, or anybody who voted for Trump is a Nazi. Um, those things are just as divisive. Um, and I think a lot of times you can only see it if you're on the receiving end. Um, and unfortunately both sides are doing it. It's being amplified on social media and sort of that, old school media, right? CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, ONA or Newsmax or any of these other sources. Like, it is amplified, and if you're just taking it in, it's being echoed back to you. So you're hearing this messaging over and over and over, and your hatred toward the other is growing and growing and growing. And it's just not a place where we can start to understand the differences of people and understand the desires that people really have at just a human level, right? And I think we start to lose that, right? Like, there's a woman down the street who has this, she puts out like a shrine to Trump every day. I don't get her. I don't understand it. One, I don't understand how she has time to do it. She puts out like 30 flags every morning. She takes them down at night. They're always different. She must have 150 different Trump flags. But she believes something fully that I don't. And I don't know how to get there with her. Not that I want to, right? But there's something that's resonating. There's something that is missing in her life that she thinks is going to be fulfilled by this person, by this, political movement. And the same holds true on the other side, right? There's people who truly believe that the Democrats are coming to save them. Kind of what I keep coming back to is like, for the most part, we're going to all save ourselves. We're going to save our local communities. And if we do that, I really do feel like we can start to make a change holistically in our country. If we sort of, instead of zooming out, zoom in a little bit and look at our neighborhood. Well, one, our home, right? Our home, and really sort of getting our home right, making sure if you have kids, they are going out into the world and they are not little assholes, um, on one side or the other, right? If you're raising a Democratic kid and they're going out and they're calling Trump supporters dumb, it's not good. And if you're a Republican and your kid's going out and calling, and you're raising, you know, a kid to hate trans kids, not good. Um, and then really holding yourself accountable as an adult, right? Being a little bit tolerant of others, and understanding that, this is just another person on this planet that's trying to get through their day and, survive. And they might have had a hard day. They might be having a hard month. They might have had some real difficulties in their life. And what can you do to make their life better, right? So we got to start at the home and start in your neighborhood. If you live in a neighborhood, let's keep it clean. Let's keep it safe. Let's respect our neighbors. Let's help each other out. And then, make a difference at the local level. Volunteerism. Go work at the local food bank, or, do community cleanups, or run for a local office, or coach a local sports team. If everybody's engaged, then people start to care about what's going on. It's stepping out from behind the keyboard. It's stepping out and away from the news and the memes that are driving so much of the anxiety and hatred, and getting out there and just being with your local neighbors and your local community, and understanding that at the core, you have way more in common with people than you have different. When I coach baseball or volunteer at a local shelter, we don't typically ask each other who we voted for. I might have an inkling, right? They might have an inkling of how I am, but we're both there doing something to better our environment and, our community, and you're working together. And most of those times you're coming out of that and you feel pretty darn good. And I'm sure the other person does too. And there is no animosity. There's no, I think I'm better than you going on. It is truly a moment of just you're working together towards something. And there's a value in that. And that starts at a local level. And then, I think if you can, again, deciding to run for local office, be that at the town level or the county level, or if you're really, aspirational, your state or federal level, this is how you're going to start to make, change happen from the inside, and speak to things that matter to people, be it local zoning laws or, local school board issues, your roads. You can make a change that matters. And I think really understanding just what people want is the key. And then stepping back to, what's going to fix this at the national level, and how do we maybe make sure that we get a party in there or a person in there that truly is focused on the people. There's got to be wholesale change. I'm not sold on the two-party system. I don't know that, I am a fan of, I'm not a fan of just the Democrats and the Republicans. I think that they need a little bit of an outside challenge, and then that would start to keep them honest. Right now, both of them are captured by money. their interests don't lie with you or me. They lie with large corporations and entire industries, right? Be it gas or pharmaceutical, the insurance agencies. They are driven not by you, me, what I need, what you need, what a Republican needs, what a Democrat needs. They are driven by how much money they're going to get for supporting certain causes, point blank. Um, and if you don't believe that, I kind of feel sorry for you, because that is truly what is happening. So until a third party comes in that isn't captured by that, or starts to challenge that, I think we are 100% going to continue down this path. I think that we could have ranked choice voting nationwide. And if you don't know what ranked choice voting is, please go look it up. It is a system that is used in different countries. And I believe in certain areas here in the United States, we use it for state elections or local elections. But it is a system where you're choosing more than one candidate, and then the weight of the vote starts to matter. And somebody who you could go in and rank your votes. One, this is my first choice, this is my second choice, this is my third choice. And people who maybe are a little lower down the ballot, that type of voting gives more choice to those, or more chance to the people lower down ballot. And again, I think for the Democrats, they need to truly think about their leadership. If they are a party of this elite system of, we think we know better than you. You're not smart enough to make choices for yourself. We only care about the educated. These are all things that I think they need to go back and fully look at as they move forward. Bernie put out a letter this week talking that they've left the Democrats have left the working class behind, and they have fully. There is, if you look at that map of the electorate from this last election, there are pockets of blue, and they are all in very affluent areas. I don't think this has anything to do with education. I think it's a class thing for the most part. And the Democrats just kind of scoffed at people who are not in that upper middle class, and that didn't buy into these ideas of elitism, and it's rearing its ugly head. I think that they need to look at young men and really understand why they've lost young men. I have 2 young sons, and I could see that. I know that nobody's going to be sad for a white dude. I get that. But I also see that, there is a fear that they're being left behind within them. And that's real. And until we acknowledge that and don't make fun of it, it's going to continue to be a challenge for one of the parties. And how to grapple with that is a big question, because again, I think it comes off differently depending where you're sitting in that argument. But I feel it, I see it, and it's there. And again, this isn't me telling you to go cry for white men, but this is me saying there's something to the loss of voters for the Democrats in that particular subset, and what that is, I think needs to be looked at fully. Same goes for the Latino men that kind of fled in mass this election cycle. Um, and just this overall idea of we're better, and it's just not good. So that was a lot. I wonder if I made any sense. I wonder if anybody's still listening. Um, if you are, I do just want to just remind everybody that, as I look at recovery, I think this all ties back to recovery for me because, the way that I think that we get out of this is the same things that I use for recovery. It's community. It's finding your community. It's really diving into it, and it's being part of it. For me, that's a huge component of how I stay sober is, making sure that I have a good community around me, and that I'm engaged in it, be it my CrossFit gym, the teams that I coach, the church that I attend, or even just my local neighborhood, right? I'm always bringing my best self to it. I'm not just taking from it. I'm giving back to these things as best I can and as much as I can. And really just being part of a community, I think, is such an important thing as we move forward over the next little bit of time, and as we try to make changes before the next election cycle. I think, again, being of service is important. How do we do that? Is it volunteering? Again, local food bank. Is it volunteering at your school? Is it volunteering to run for local office? If you are truly inspired to make change, that's the way that you can do it. I know it's not for everybody, but it is the thing that is going to make the largest difference. Being part of the process is such a huge thing to be able to do. Not just sit there and complain about what's going on behind a keyboard where nothing happens. Even if you can't run for local office, go to your local town meetings. Be a voice that's heard. Don't just sit and type it out. Go there. Be a pain in the ass. Have a cause. Speak up. Do something. Really do something. Organize groups that are going to be, supportive of what you want, right? Don't organize groups that are tearing others down. Organize groups that are supporting what you want and bring that positive message forward, right? The solution, not we hate this, but we want this, right? I always say at work, if you come to me with a problem only, it's not helpful. I need you to come with the problem and a solution or two, right? They might not be the solutions, but I'm more apt to listen to you if you do that. And I think too much right now, we are just coming to people with the negative, right? It's all about the negative. And I think if we start to reframe that and say, here's my solution, here's what I want to see, here's what needs to change, and here's how we're going to change it, I think you're going to start to see more change, right? So stop the name calling, stop the rhetoric, and come with actual ideas of things to do. I've seen women and people online saying, hey, I'm stockpiling abortion medication. That's great. I think that's a positive thing, right? It's not like, hey, we're only losing this. We feel like we're going to lose this right, and it's going to be taken away from us, and then just complaining. No, people are starting to take action. It's a very scary action, but it's an action. And I think action and service is so important in recovery, and it relates right back to where we're at. And then the last thing I'll offer is like your health. Really holding on to your health is so important in recovery, and it is now the same thing, and that's physical and mental health, right? So turning off the news, not engaging in debates online, that go nowhere because it's just online and people are shit online. They have been forever. That predates social media for those of you who don't know. But, back in the day, you had message boards and people were shit then and they're shit now. Um, they're just nasty, right? People will say things online that they would never say to your face because there is no fear of getting your nose caved in, and that is a true fear when you're talking to somebody in person. Even on the phone, people will be complete shit. But if you're in a room with them, they're going to be more reasonable. So don't engage online, right? Just shut it off. Um, Even though there's algorithms and they're meant to enrage you and keep you going and scrolling, you can curate your feed. You can unfollow people you don't like. You don't need to follow that account that pisses you off because you think it's showing you something because, oh, I get so angry and I love that feeling. Just unfollow it. Do it. And if you can't do that, just shut off social media. Get off Facebook. Get off TikTok. Get off Instagram. Right? That is the mental health side. And if that isn't enough and you're still feeling despair and hopeless, go, there's so many resources for mental health right now. There's online mental health. There's apps on your phone. There are local resources. There's free resources. There are so many resources that you can use to get your head in a better spot. I just challenge everybody to do that if they feel they need it. And if you're really, really in a bad spot, medication is fine. Don't let anybody tell you different. It doesn't affect your sobriety. An SSRI is not something, despite the old guy at AA that's going to tell you that it is taking away from your sobriety. It is helping you, and it is 100% okay. And then your physical health, right? Go out, go take a walk, go lift weights, go for a run, go climb a tree, go do something. It helps. You know, it gets that anxiety out. It gets the wiggles out. It's going to help you get out your frustration. If you do it in the right environment, it kind of builds a community, and I think it's just really important. And and eat well, right? Nourish yourself, take vitamins, do all those things. All these things are so important to being a better version of yourself now, in relation to what we're talking about today, and then just long term. You're just going to become a better person. It doesn't mean that, again, I hate to say it, but people say, people who go to the gym are, and taking care of themselves are right leaning, right? There's plenty of that in the media. It's not. You're just taking care of yourself. You're doing the right thing for your body. You get one body. You have one mind. Treat it well. Whatever that looks like for you, treat it well. Again, thank you for listening to me ramble today. Probably not an episode for everybody. A little bit different. You might come out of this episode hating me and never listen again. I hope that I gave you a view that isn't just me being for or against anybody, but more this idea of being open-minded as we go in to this next cycle of whatever we're going to see through our politics. Stand up for what you believe in, treat each other kindly, and take care of yourself. And I really do feel that despite the doom and gloom that we hear so much of, and the rhetoric that we're hearing from others and the hate, I do feel that we're going to be okay. And if we continue to support each other and take care of each other, we will be. So I really have no recommendations for media this week. It's been a long week. It's taken a lot out of me. I guess feeling what everybody's feeling. maybe I am truly have a little empathy. So if you could like, subscribe, comment on the podcast, that helps, bump it up the charts and get a little bit more exposure. And we will be starting interviews and new episodes in the next couple weeks. I have some guests on backlog, and I'm excited about that. And that is that. Thanks for listening, and we will talk to you on the next episode.